Hello. Big Scary back again with another great show. Make sure you smash that like button and that subscribe button so you'll be notified when another amazing episode drops. So where do we even start? It's been a while, but I'm back, doing big scary things. So we're going to start off with some MMA action first. So I think I had done the pre-fight breakdown on the last episode of, what was that, the UFC 259, and I kind of thought Adesanya was going to look a little bit better, but you got to give it up to Blachowicz. He came in there, and when it was time to win the fight, the fight, halfway through the fight, Adesanya still had a chance, but in the later rounds, Blachowicz started implementing the wrestling and was just able to stymie Adesanya, and he just, I guess maybe that's also why they have weight classes, because Adesanya just wasn't able to really hurt Blachowicz. And so yeah, back to being the middleweight champ for Adesanya, and he'll have to put that on hold, being the 2 division champ. But Blachowicz looked pretty good in there. So let's see what else we had. Amanda Nunes against Megan Anderson, and Amanda Nunes just went out and dominated. She's completely cleared out the 145 division. Megan Anderson was one of the only actual legit 145ers. So Nunes has gone through the rest of them. I honestly don't even, I'd like to see her fight Shevchenko again at 35, even though she beat her twice already, because those fights were very close. And me personally, I think Shevchenko is better, but Nunes is a much bigger woman. So she has that advantage. That's really the only thing I could see. She's just mowing through these chicks. I don't know who the next person that they have for. I never thought she was gonna blast through Cyborg the way she did. So yeah, she's pretty much. There's no question she is by far the woman's GOAT. Yeah, I don't even see who's on the horizon to be the next GOAT. So yeah, what else was there? Aljamain Sterling over Peter Yan for the bantamweight title, and it ended in a win for Aljamain Sterling, because it was an illegal knee to the downed opponent by Peter Yan. Yeah, people talk like Sterling should have tried to get up and continue, but it was an illegal shot. It really shouldn't even necessarily be in the fighter's hands at that point, because you're always gonna have people who are gonna, the fighter should have gotten up. The referee should make a call and go with that if. That's how it is. But so I don't know, they need to do the immediate rematch, because I can't imagine that anyone feels comfortable with that. Sterling left the belt in the ring, or in the cage, but he's been like prancing around with it since then, so we'll see what happens. But yeah, up until the illegal knee, Peter Yan was starting to move ahead. He was having his way. Peter Yan is legit. Like he's one of the best I think there's been at 135. We'll see when TJ Dillashaw comes back, or it's going to be tough at that division for anybody to beat Yan. Sterling seems like he's just holding the belt until Jan's ready to take it. But let's see. So I think we had another fight night after that. It was supposed to be, or it was Bilal Muhammad against Leon Edwards. Yes, Leon Edwards ended in no contest for a legal eye poke. Yeah, they need to do something about these gloves. It's Pride solved this problem 15 years ago, so I don't even understand why this is still an issue. The main event of a fight being called off after I think it was the second round, and it looked bad too. It looked bad. No contest. Bilal was writhing in pain on the mat. Yeah, it wasn't good. Let's see. Our co-main was Ryan Spahn against Misa Serkinov, and Ryan Spahn looked good. I mean, they say he's supposedly a predominantly a ground fighter, yet he's just been blasting through guys. He's pretty athletic, and nice first round knockout. We also had Dan Ige with picking up a first round KO. Then we also had a fight night. Derek Brunson, who was it, against Kevin Holland, and Kevin Holland came out and he was doing all the talking and stuff, but Derek Brunson just took his lunch pail to work and just started wrestling, and Holland couldn't do anything. And I mean, he kept talking, but it didn't really matter because he was just getting dominated on the mat. So I'm pretty sure hopefully he'll learn something from that. I mean how to stop a takedown a little better, and he's still young. He's got a long career ahead of him. I mean, in the stand-up exchanges, he was looking good, but Brunson would just get the fight to the mat, and then Holland couldn't get back up for the rest of the round. So just kept going like that, rinse and repeat. Then that brought us to UFC 260, headlined by Stipe Miocic, the defended the heavyweight title more times than any other UFC heavyweight champion. Definitely the GOAT of the UFC heavyweight division, facing in a rematch, the genetic super freak, Francis Ngannou. I mean, the guy looks like he was like sculpted out of like stone. And the first fight, everyone was thinking that Ngannou was just gonna knock Stipe out, but Stipe came out there, took some shots, and just implemented his game and just dominated Ngannou for the whole 5 rounds. So there were several years since then, so how much could Ngannou actually elevate his game? He had people like Teddy Atlas helping him out. He'd gone over to Extreme Couture, so he'd really been working on his wrestling, on his jiu-jitsu, or that's what they'd been saying. I mean, you never really know, because he'd still just been blasting guys out in his last couple fights, so it wasn't even really coming to any of that. So what was going to happen? Was Stipe going to be able to do the same thing he did last time, or was Francis going to be able to come out there and knock Stipe out? Because you just didn't think Ngannou had a chance at winning a decision, but he definitely, if he landed the right shot, could knock Stipe out. And at the beginning, Francis didn't come out too aggressive, definitely showed composure, which you like to see in a young fighter, and this time he landed a nice shot on Stipe, and Stipe took it pretty good. And then Stipe had taken him down or had gone for a takedown. Francis had sprawled nicely, and then had actually circled around to the back, and then was landing nice shots. It was nice, and so it was a nice first round. Second round comes out. Lands, there's nothing there. I mean, they're both feeling each other out still. There are a couple shots come close to landing on Stipe, good ones. Stipe's landing his own shots. Francis is throwing some leg kicks in there, and then Stipe had missed a shot, and Francis had countered, and that was night, just crumpled over. And there was he landed a hammer fist before the ref could get there, but it wasn't even needed. Stipe was done before he hit the mat. So Francis is now the heavyweight champion, and they're talking about possibly doing a super fight with him and John Jones. I can't even call. John Jones, I mean, to me, he's the best of all time, but his last 2 fights, he hasn't looked that good, and now we're talking about moving up to heavyweight, and he's never been hit by anybody. I mean, he was able to avoid actually even Anthony Johnson. I mean, DC was able to beat Anthony Johnson pretty easily, so you would assume John Jones would have, but I mean, you can't really do MMA math. But you still, John Jones never really faced a huge puncher, and especially, I mean, at light heavyweight, there is no huge puncher like Francis. I mean, Anthony Johnson was the closest thing, and so we never faced him. So it'd be interesting to see if his technique is able to overcome, I mean, now becoming better technique of Ngannou's, but just also the brute force and the punching power. So I mean, I'd definitely like to see that. I still have to see more of what Jones is going to look like in the lead up to this fight at heavyweight, because a couple of the videos I've seen so far, he looks pretty slow, but I mean, you never can always tell stuff by videos, but it'd be interesting to see how he's able to work with all the added weight. And then the co-main was Tyron Woodley versus Vincente Lucay, and it came out the first round. It was good, and they were landing some nice shots back and forth, and then Lucay hurt Woodley, and from there he didn't let up, and he was able to get the fight to the mat and ended it with a Darce choke. So that's 4 losses for Woodley. I don't know that he always had the best relationship with Dana White, so I don't know, who knows, he might get cut. And he also, I mean, the type of money he makes, they probably don't want him, I mean, at this point, because it looks like he's on the downward side of his career. So yeah, that might have been the last we saw of Tyron Woodley in the UFC, and it was a nice win for Vincente Lucay. Let's see, the other big fight, Sean O'Malley against Thomas Almeida, and Sean O'Malley looked good. He had Almeida so hurt that he started walking away because he thought the ref was going to end the fight, but then he didn't, and so Almeida was able to make it through that first round, and then the second and third rounds, I mean, O'Malley landed some shots, landed some very good shots, and Almeida ate him, and so it looked like it was going to end up going to a decision, but then O'Malley was able to land a nice shot for the nice KO in the third round. So I can't wait to see who's the next guy they give. O'Malley, Almeida is decent, but he's definitely he's definitely not the upper echelon. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see what they do with him next. The next event is Darren Till against Marvin Vettori, and Vittori's the only one the only one at 185 he gave Adesanya one of the closest fights. So he's got some nice stand up, and until at 85 hasn't looked as good as he looked at 170 yet. So it'll be interesting to see who's able to implement their game. Vettori, he's not going to be able to bully Vettori around. I think Vettori might be able to pull this fight out. He looked good against Jack Hermanson last time. I'm looking for Vettori in the upset. Let's see. So we'll hit up some March Madness action. The number 1 seeds were Gonzaga, Michigan, Baylor, and Illinois. There were some big upsets. Florida lost to Oral Roberts, and Oral Roberts had beat Ohio State too. Chicago had beat Illinois. Our final 4 winds up being Gonzaga against UCLA, and then Baylor against Houston. And this is you don't really expect Gonzaga, even though they were the #1 seed all year. It's until, I mean, we haven't seen a Power 5 conference win in the modern eras, or a non-Power 5 conference team win in the modern era. So, I mean, even if they win, it's like, I mean, they're undefeated too. I mean, so it's almost looking like they're going to win, but until they do, I mean, it's still, you just don't expect them to. And so even a Baylor, I mean, yes, they're in a power conference, but Baylor isn't what you think of as a basketball school, or at least in men's. I mean, their women's team is usually actually pretty good, but not in men's. So it's shaping up, and even in Houston hadn't been to the big dance in like 30 years or something. So I mean, UCLA's a perennial favorite, but they're only an 11 seed this year. They made it from the play-in game. So it's shaping up to be an exciting Final Four. I'm picking Gonzaga over UCLA and Baylor over Houston, with Gonzaga over Baylor for the national championship. And let's see, in some NBA news, we have Blake Griffin and LaMarcus Aldridge going to the Nets, Andre Drummond going to the Lakers, and Victor Oladipo going to the Heat. Let's see, and finally, in boxing action, we had Dillian White knocking out Alexander Povetkin in the rematch of a fight that White was winning, but then he even dropped Povetkin twice, and then Povetkin was able to land a shot and ended it, but this time it didn't go that way, and White was able to finish it out, knock Povetkin out in the 4th round, and that was the end of it. So yeah, that's all the sports action that we have on this episode. So remember to hit us up on Big Scary on Facebook, Big Scary on Twitter, Trauma Television on Facebook and YouTube, because this is a Trauma Television production. And as Martin Luther King said, the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends toward justice.